And there we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Barry Smith.
I'm Beth Smith.
Welcome to Radio Tiny House. We've got a special guest with us today.
We do. I'm so excited.
It's going to be fun, I think. A lot of information. We're going to be talking with Chris Gerhardt. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well.
Chris is a shed builder, which is kind of cool in and of itself. But
Right.
Chris also has a great business plan outside of just building a shed. So what is that, Chris?
So I'll say I'm actually a dealer, not a builder.
Oh, okay.
So the pictures are at the plant where they build them. So, but as far as business plan, we actually kind of got into this because we were looking to do a bed and breakfast, and we looked at several options, but didn't want to start from scratch.
Right.
And decided that getting a dried-in unit and starting and just doing the interior was a better way to go, and turns out economically it's even, in my opinion, a better choice if you value your time. And
Yes,
so,
we do.
yeah,
And our
so-
health.
yeah,
Falling off of roofs and things like that.
yeah. And so anyhow, yeah, we were looking to do, I do some commercial rental property, and we actually have a room that we do a bed and breakfast in our house. And so we were looking at doing something that was more of a standalone unit. Because when we travel, we kind of pretty much exclusively do bed and breakfast. And we always look for small standalone houses. That's kind of our favorite thing. And
Right.
and we started
That's
noticing, and we start noticing when you go to an area, I don't know if y'all have seen this, you'll usually come across one or two and you're like, ooh, that one is perfect. And then it's booked for like 2 months solid.
Right.
And I'm like, we talked about it, it's like, I think we need to build that. Let's try to create that perfect scenario. And we've got 20 acres behind our house, so we thought we can set this out there, and it's it's secluded, it's out in the country, you're by yourself, but yet it's really right in town, and we'll just try to do I'm going to call it a high-end cottage
Right.
type atmosphere, and we'll see how it goes. And because I know when those things go, they go really well. We've got several friends that have bed and breakfast, and they make really good money off of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got we call her an adopted daughter that lives in Nashville that has an Airbnb, and she's done just a phenomenal
Yeah, they
job
have
with this place.
Two, one in Atlanta and little kind of small, and then, Nashville. So she's really turned us on to the opportunities for that. And she's young enough to be our daughter, right?
Yeah.
For sure. But then the other piece of that is because we're in the shed building space, I keep looking at them and going, oh my gosh, through COVID, we went to the beach actually and stayed in a 350 square foot cottage that honestly could have been a shed. I mean, who knows? I think it may have been a shed that
Right.
they converted.
Yeah.
But it was really nice because with COVID, we're not exposing ourselves to germs, right? We want to make sure that it's clean and neat and tidy, and we're not going through hotel lobbies and going up elevators. And so I just think that this cottage notion of a cottage and a place to stay, I would never stay. I don't think I'd stay in somebody's house. No offense to yours. I'm just really
Right.
picky about my space.
Mhm.
And I have become that way, particularly since we build and that kind of thing. But having our own private space that's small house, that's what we always look for.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, and when we, travel is kind of limited right now because of COVID. But when we do go, I'm much more comfortable in an Airbnb because I know the requirements that Airbnb has put on hosts about cleanliness during COVID, and I'm just not sure how many hotels you walk in that you get that same thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure they're trying, but yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about what you're doing. As the folks that are watching can see, there's the shed that is being built in a
Yes.
what do you call that? A big manufacturing facility, right?
Yes, you can actually see a couple in line behind it.
Right. I was like, oh, they're really like pushing them out.
They are. They send, they complete multiple buildings every day. So that's one of three main construction lines.
Uh-huh.
And so I'll tell you, when I went to look at this cabin, you can see that's the shape it was in. That was Wednesday at lunch, about an hour away. And they delivered it at 3 o'clock the next afternoon.
It's
Wow.
amazing.
Complete.
When we had a Tuff Shed delivered to our house, and we had built another one on our property for our daughter is living in, and that took us almost 2 years to complete for a lot of reasons. Partly we didn't know what the heck we were doing, but secondarily there were some other issues. But anyway,
we built a house. We did about 80% of the work on the house with no house building experience prior to that.
And so then it was time for us, because then our daughter needed it, so we gifted her that space. So then it was time for us, and we were like, oh crap, now we have to build. Oh, I said kind of a cuss word.
No, you
Then
didn't.
we have to build something ourselves, and we had Tuff Shed come out and put something on site, and we built it to code. And they did it in 6 days in an ice storm.
Yeah.
So there's no, we do value our time, so there's no way we could have done that, and then we were able to move on and finish the interior. So tell me, when you ordered this, and obviously it was already partially complete when you decided, or maybe you just grabbed that one, or had you pre-ordered exactly what you wanted?
So the company that I work with does custom builds. And so, from a customer experience, and this is, I became a dealer. I had a space that I thought would work for a shed dealership, and they agreed. So that's how I got to go see it being built. But essentially, the way the customer experience works with Sturdy Shed as the company, we sit down and we custom build what you want, do a 3D model of it, and then we send it in to be built. And they're typically delivered in 3 weeks, so 3 to 4 weeks. So
what's the name of the distributor or dealer?
Sturdy Shed.
Okay.
And Ulrich Barn Builders, or Ulrich Cabins, is the parent company. And so they're much different than a lot of the shed dealers, because generally you have to kind of go pick what they have, and then you have to buy that and deal with it. I can have a custom, and I can actually do an on-site build. Our current on-site time is 2 weeks. So, in 2 weeks we can do a custom build. They'll show up, build it, in a couple of days. So that's one of the things that this company's I really, really like, outside the fact that I believe they're probably, if not the best, one of the best quality in the industry, is that they're able to custom build at that quality level. So you get exactly what you want. So you're not having to buy and go, well, we don't really want these doors and we really need 3 more windows, but we'll take this and make the adjustments.
Right.
I can sit down and draw it up, and that's what we did with this one. Send it in and they build it.
And that's what we did with Home Depot. Obviously, there's pluses and minuses about that process, but yeah. So one of the things I try to remind people when they're thinking about ordering a shed, right, is 2 important things, and you'll have probably more, but house wrap. Don't forget to get your shed with house wrap. Well, let's say 3 decent windows, right? And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, because I see you have, this lovely dormer and with those windows. And then lastly, something on the floor as far as insulation, because once it comes and gets delivered to your house, you can't get under there.
Right.
Right. If it's sitting on blocks.
This is on a foundation.
No, but if it's on blocks, or, and yours is on blocks. Anyway, so was there anything else that you would describe differently from your order? Not quite yet.
Well, and I'm not familiar enough with the industry to speak to where you guys are, but around here, at least with our company, we specify shed and cabin shell.
Right.
And so a cabin shell is designed to be built out, where a shed is not.
And what we're doing here is a cabin shell, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, this is a cabin shell. So, and there's a lot of little things that come into play when you start finishing one out. How are the corners finished? Do you have anything to attach sheetrock to on your end walls? Because a lot of times when it's a shed, they kind of they build it as cheaply as possible to keep costs down. But when you're trying to finish it into a house, you're gonna spend more time and money than if you'd have bought one that was ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think looking for something that, looking for a builder that will build something that is designed to be finished, puts you way further ahead, in the end.
I
Right.
don't
So,
disagree. Right. Although, because people see them on the road, right? And they don't know that there are lots of other options.
right.
And when you're in these shed groups, there's not really much conversation about the whole cabin idea, right?
No,
It's more about
no.
getting those ready, what they call ready removables. I call them drag and drop sheds, and turning them into houses, right? And so, those kinds of details, as you described, are so important. But anyway,
Yeah.
this is your cabin build. By the
Yeah.
way, I love what you've done. So I've just edited out some of the pictures, but Barry, you want to scoot forward?
Sure, I'll scoot forward.
He's got the mouse.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so let's
We may
talk
have gone
about
two.
did you go for two?
No,
I don't think
no.
so.
Yeah, there's one.
I think
Go
there's
ahead.
one before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, the
The
dead,
upside
the
down
dead person
person.
laying on the floor. Oh no.
The upside down and backwards person.
I didn't realize I sent you that one. My wife will be thrilled to see
We won't
that.
tell her. We won't tell her. So clearly now you're starting to frame. You've gotten it delivered, and
Yes.
we have it on wheel, a picture of it on wheels somewhere, and that was it being delivered to your property. I think that's near
Yes.
the end, but
We had to come through our neighbor's property. That's one thing I would tell people: make sure you can get it in, because that is something to think of if it has to be delivered on wheels.
Right.
So
right. And this was delivered on wheels, and so now we're seeing the framing. And I wanted it to pointed out. Obviously, we discussed it a little bit. It does have house wrap.
yes,
And then of course it's probably 16 on center, not 24 on center. Is what
Yes.
I'm looking this far. And I'm talking about studs for people who don't really know what that means.
yes,
And then it looks like you've got standard windows and a house door instead of those shed doors.
yeah, man. Those shed doors are so. I just wish somebody could scream from the top of those shed groups, "Don't get
Don't
shed
do that.
doors."
Right.
Yes, don't do that.
Yeah, because that means if you have shed doors, that means you bought a shed and it's not tall enough to put an actual entry door in without cutting it down.
Right.
Right.
And so it's
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we have of course the Tuff Shed was built,
As a house,
as a house
basically.
to code, but
Yes.
we have another shed, what Beth calls a drag and drop, that we're in right now, and we've turned that into half of it is a podcast studio, recording studio, well maybe a third, and then the rest of it's going to be for other uses. But the door is just kind of funky.
It's short.
It's short. You can't go to Home Depot and go, oh, I like that door, and replace it. You have to order something custom.
It isn't.
So,
It isn't the shed doors. It's just a regular, like a metal door, but
Yeah.
they've whacked the bottom off of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it looks like also y'all use 2x4 construction there.
yes.
Okay.
And the rafters, do you have to afford to build to any code where you are? Are those, because you have more rafters than trusses, if you will.
Yeah. So the buildings are engineered to meet code,
Okay,
and
cool.
so really that's kind of taken care of from a design
So
standpoint.
you don't need to worry about that.
No, we don't. And around here, I know in some states it's very, every state's different, and really every city is different.
Right.
Yes,
In
yes.
the city that we're in, since we bought a completed building from a manufacturer, we really didn't really have any issues there.
Oh, cool.
So
I also see some tie downs between the top
Yes.
trusses and the framing. That's important,
Yes.
so your roof doesn't blow off.
yes, and just to keep them structurally sound when they're moving, also.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
and these this one here actually has tie downs from the floor joist to the skids.
Oh, I was going
So
to
then
ask
when
that.
yeah, so then when you anchor it down to the ground, the building is solid. It can't fly away.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And that's important. All right,
Yes.
let's go to the next one.
Go to the next one. All right.
Okay, next. Barry's the.
All right. Bye to your
yes.
wife.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah.
And then here's just another part where you're starting to. Did you frame the interior or did they frame it for you?
No, I did. I framed it.
Okay, so there's your bathroom coming along,
Yes.
and is the kitchen. If I recall, the kitchen's right beside in that slot.
Yes.
See that a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I see electrical and the shower pan.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
yes.
one thing I don't do.
Electrical.
I don't mess with things that'll kill me, like electrical and gas.
In a previous life, I was a controls engineer, and I actually engineered electrical systems. So
Yeah.
So that's
I'm okay.
Okay.
not
Yeah.
us. We're not doing that.
I'll just a side story here. When we were insulating under our house,
Yeah.
Because we have a crawl space, so we were underneath insulating, and there was a wire hanging down, and I called our electrician and I said, "There's a yellow wire hanging down, underneath kind of where the dishwasher is. Is this a live wire? Do we need to cap this off, or can I cut it?" And he said, "No, there's no power running to it. You can just cut it right off."
Yeah.
That was not true. That was not a pleasant experience.
Thank goodness he survived that. So if we ever were going to do electric, we aren't.
Yes.
So here's the framing the other direction, which is what are we seeing back here?
So this is actually when we started framing the kitchen and bathroom. So,
so it's the same thing.
So one of the things I did, which you really need to understand structural to do this, and I would not advise it to most people, but my brother-in-law is also a contractor, so we worked through this, but they generally use rafter ties
Yes.
up at the top to maintain, so that basically the roof doesn't just do this number.
Right.
And so, yeah, so what you're seeing there is I had put a tie in so that we removed all of the ties through the middle of the building. And the way we were able to do that is by tying the walls together. So what you're seeing is that I put a wall tie in, and we were going to put a ceiling in the kitchen, but decided against that. So in the future, or in the previous picture, you'll see that what we did instead to hold that up is the wall went all the way up to the ceiling or to the roof peak. And so that serves the same function as the tie.
Right.
Well, I'm really glad you addressed that, because in these shed groups, we do see a lot of people saying, "Can I take these out?" And I'm like, no, don't take those out. That's keeping your roof pointed.
Yes.
And if you get snow or just through time, your roof is going to sag. So I'm really glad that you hit that point.
You really have to know what you're doing, hire
or ask somebody who does.
A framer, a framing contractor or something could come look at it and tell you how. We did some work in the middle of the building, in the dormer. We laminated 3/4 inch plywood to the ceiling or to the roof to remove the ties.
You made this kind of a truss top, like a little triangle of a truss top.
Yeah, but we actually didn't even do a triangle. I essentially just cut them to cover the mending plates. And then we use construction adhesive and screws. And so what that does, that strengthens that joint so you don't have a hinge. You don't want a hinge. A hinge is when they break. So or fall apart. So anyways, we did that to all the center of the dormer so we could remove that one and keep it open.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Special tricks. Nice to know that, the other nice thing is that you have the construction experience and the experience of others that you can help share.
Yes.
Okay, let's go again. Okay, here's your air conditioner. And I wanted to ask you why you chose to use that rather than a mini split.
Cost.
Is this an air conditioner and heat?
No, we're actually using an electric fireplace. So we have a heater. We have a ceiling heater in the restroom, and then we're using an electric fireplace in the middle of the room, which will, in our climate, will be enough 95% of the time. And we're going to have a supplemental heater in the bedroom if needed.
Right.
So you can also get a window unit with heat and do that, but we looked at the mini split, and the other thing is with a mini split is if you have to go and replace them, they don't have a reputation for running forever. They're probably about like a window unit. And so they're more expensive to replace and they're more difficult to replace. So, a window unit, they're standard size, 2 screws. I can pull that one out, put a new one in. Because I figure if you get 3 to 5 years out of them, you've probably done pretty good. And some mini splits may last 10 years and some window units do too. But just for me, it made more sense from a cost standpoint.
Cool. All right. We have mini splits. I hope you're not right in the fact that they're going to be gone in a couple of years. We've had them for
we've been in our house for 3 years.
Almost 3 years. The tricky part is the drain lines can clog. We had that happen. We were like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And so we figured that out. But for us, we're thinking about putting a mini split here in this other office because of sound, right? Because if we're doing videos and a podcast and whatever, and we want air, those can be noisy. So we're thinking about just getting one of those, standalone mini splits for up here too. But anyway, just curious as to why you chose to do it that way.
Now, what part of Texas are you in?
Just Central Texas.
Okay.
We are just southwest of DFW area.
Okay.
Dallas Fort Worth.
All right.
I wanted to comment on your insulation. You insulate like I do. You upholster I've seen insulation in so many different formats, and I make my insulation look just like this. I want the vapor barrier functioning. I want it neat and tidy. I don't want it squashed. I want it everywhere. And I've seen insulation in every kind of format of that. And it drives Barry a little crazy. I'm like, no, I just want it to be perfect. I need it to be perfect.
Yeah. I've learned over the years doing projects, do it right the first time. It usually pays off in the end.
Right.
So take a little extra time.
I was like, this is a man after my own heart. Look how he's done his insulation. All right.
Yeah, well, you don't even need sheetrock.
Right. You could just put up a piece of drop cloth and you'd be fine. Be hard to rent that way, but
I don't know. You could go for the bare bones experience.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think most people don't realize that craft paper is, a vapor barrier or a vapor inhibitor.
Inhibitor,
So it's,
it's important.
So
I think it's important to utilize that and keep it sealed.
Yes.
And that. So let's talk about your plumbing. I see you're doing PEX.
Yep.
Yes.
How
I did.
Have you always used PEX?
Yes. I don't know. I've done several jobs with PEX. I'm not an expert plumber. Again, I've got a brother-in-law that does construction, and he's taught me how to do a lot of this stuff. So I'm really fortunate there. And
we don't have any brother-in-laws like that. Sorry.
He does a little bit of everything. So anytime I've got a question or need a tool or anything, I just holler at him and I have him come look at it and, make sure I haven't missed anything. And so I did PEX though. I like it. It's very easy to work with.
Yeah, really important to do it. And I'm going to throw this in there. We used the same plumber on our second house as we did for our first, and they really screwed us over the second time. Sadly, you trust people and then they fall apart later.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
But I asked them, do you use PEX? Yeah, we can use PEX. They didn't get their shark bites or whatever you call those things on the PEX done and kind of abandoned me. And so
when we did the water test
was full of leaks. So make sure you test when you're plumbing. You should do a test anyway, right? But
you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, I closed ours up before I tested it, but I was very, very careful to make sure I had all the crimps done.
Right. Because there's little crimps and little tiny pieces of water that come out. So when we turned ours on, not knowing that they hadn't done that test, we had sealed it up and we had some problems. Called another plumber and he helped us solve it. But just make sure you do that test, that line test before you seal anything up to make sure whether it's PEX or the standard plumbing, make sure that you don't end up with sheetrock that's now mud.
And I'm 100% confident that everything is crimped on this one in the walls. So
And just to be sure, you went back and did it again before you sealed everything up.
I did. I absolutely did. I went back and looked everything over. And,
it helps to be a little compulsive when you do these things. Back to do it right the first time.
Yes.
Right, that's exactly right. All right.
Now I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you about your ceilings.
Okay.
Obviously, this is beautiful. I love all the windows that you've opted into here.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Actually.
It's beautiful, and the end result is beautiful. And I don't think you have any trouble renting your bed and breakfast. And I have a tip for you at the end about where I should locate this.
Okay.
Right, because that's what I do. Tell me about your foil ceiling. It looks like you had 2x6 on the ceiling. So you didn't, for our code, if you're meeting code here, now I don't know if it's the same for a manufactured home, but you have to have an R38 in the ceiling.
Okay.
Clearly that's not going to work here because R38 is like 12 inches deep. So I'm sure there are ways around it, but that's what we were told. Now tell me, this looks like just what I call astrofoil, but it's like Reflexic or something like that, some name brand. Do you have something else under that, or is it just a reflecting roof?
No, it's just reflecting. And I've not seen anybody do this, but I've built some metal buildings as well and used this stuff. And when applied properly here, it works really well. But a big asterisk to when applied properly, because used improperly, it gives you almost nothing.
Help, right?
Yeah. So, okay. So this is not something I'd seen done before, but when I was back in, like I say, in another lifetime when I did engineering stuff, we worked with building envelopes. So understanding how ventilation and vapor barrier and all of those things work is something that we did. And so I think I kind of just came up with this on my own. But the idea of this, so this building has vented eaves and a vented ridge, which is very rare. Most sheds don't have it at all, and most cabins don't. But by having a vented system, you're able to draft all the heat out.
Right.
And so essentially, what I did is I used it is actually Astrofoil. That is cool. The main brand. So they make a floor joist product that is made to be used like you did, where you crawl under there and staple it up between the floor joists. Mm-hmm. And most floor joists are 24 on center, well, either 24 or 16. And so I got their 24-inch on center floor joist installation, and I bought a new pneumatic stapler because I went through about 1,500 staples putting this stuff up.
Yes, a pole your ceiling.
And so so what I did was create an air gap between the insulation and the roof, and then also create an air gap between the insulation and the wood ceiling. That's
what I thought I saw, and I wanted to make sure, because Reflexic or Astrofoil is about reflecting heat. But if you put something flat up against it, it takes its ability to do that away.
Absolutely.
So that is from what I suspected, that is suspended between your ceiling boards and your roof, which is metal. Is your roof metal?
Yes, it is. Okay. Black metal. So that's nice and hot. So then you're creating a barrier, but you also now that ridge vent is also shooting that hot air out. That's trapped between each one of your little bays. Got it. And by the way convective motion works, it will actually draft through that space
and pull it out.
Yeah, so it'll actually, it's like a power vent, and you can actually feel it. Once I got this up, the transformers for our LED lighting, I had to go around those.
Right.
And you can literally like push your finger up there and just feel the airflow. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it works really well.
That is pretty cool. We have that. We used that in the other part of our office or studio or whatever we're calling it. On the ceiling, and it's a barn style kind of ceiling. We didn't want to do anything with it when we first got it.
We were using it for an office.
Yeah, we covered the whole thing in Astrofoil, and I have to tell you, I mean, it's a thin product, and it doesn't look like it's going to do anything. But on the coldest days we've had, just a small space heater heats up that space. And of course, we've got the walls insulated, but it's so
we've just gone back and insulated the walls with fiberglass, and we've the same thing almost as your ceiling. We just haven't put any sheetrock on it. Because we didn't put it between the bays, we just upholstered the ceiling because first off, we didn't know what we were doing, and second off, we didn't really need it to be anything different than that. So it was easier just to staple up Astrofoil all over the ceiling.
But it's a great product.
Yeah, it is.
If you use it correctly.
That's the big if. I mean, that is so important.
Yep.
Yeah. I know.
And another point, most that you made is that it reflects down as well. And so when you create that air gap and keep it away from your ceiling, it will actually reflect that heat down. And in my opinion, I think that's a better option than having fiberglass sandwiched between a closed space.
I agree 100%.
Now, we may be getting more in the weeds than a lot of people expect on our Radio Tiny House podcast, but I think I think this is important because I see, I'm in several of these groups. That's how I found you. But I think the end result, of course, is your bed and breakfast. And I want to talk about that. But
Yes,
I see so many people who want so badly to build a place for their family, right?
Yes.
A low entry. And then they post things like, oh, I've got water running in my wall. I have condensation everywhere.
Yes.
So they're trying so hard to do this.
Yes.
And they just don't have the right skill sets and information. So this may be, again, a little bit more in the weeds than some of our podcasts, but I think it's really important for people to be able to see this and understand that you can do it inexpensively. You just have to do some research and be a little smart about how to handle the problems that you're going to be delivered. And I have come to believe too, there's this idea that foam insulation is the way to do these. And I think it's probably maybe the worst choice you can make. I really think foam's a bad idea. Well, because in a small space, you have to deal with humidity. And, everybody says, oh, do foam and put a humidifier. Well, if you have to put a humidifier in, something is wrong with your building envelope and your ventilation.
Exactly.
And so that's like saying, I don't know. It's like using shed doors and I don't know, stapling rubber to the outside. It's like it's a Band-Aid. And so
and these are small spaces, and moisture, particularly in the South where we are, where you are, humidity, moisture is a big thing. You're breathing, you're taking showers, you're cooking. We made the mistake of not putting an outside vent over our stove. And that's the big mistake that we have to solve. I just need to get somebody who got a vent, but then I set off the smoke alarm every time I cook because it's a small space.
That's just kind of the saying around our house: dinner is ready when the smoke alarm goes off.
Yeah. It's not always my fault.
Yeah.
But it's moisture and smoke and all those things that happen. And your space is smaller than our house. Our house is about 768 square feet. Anyway, so let's move on from that. And
I think we've given Astrofoil
a big,
a pretty good, bump.
Absolutely.
Put that in the description so people can order. And there's more of it. Yeah, and I wanted to just mention a couple things about this photo. Obviously, you can see the Astrofoil on the ceiling, the green board in the bathroom. Do you want to briefly just talk about what that does for people who don't know?
Well, it handles moisture better. So sheetrock will absorb moisture, but the green rock is actually designed to work in wet spaces. So that's why you want to use green rock in your bathroom.
And it costs just a little more. Sheetrock is really cheap.
A couple bucks a sheet, maybe.
Cheapest thing to cover my walls. I'm like, sheetrock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a pain in the neck to do all that taping and all that
mudding and sanding and
it's
also. I didn't sand this. I'll tell you a secret. I have learned to finish without sanding.
Well, I do a lot of that too.
Yeah.
And he's like, use texture. Crazy. I'm like, I don't want to sand all that stuff.
Right.
So just
I get the sanding. When we had our house done, we didn't do the sheetrock in our own house just because it was just too much of a.
We had too much going on.
Too much going on. We were going to Europe and all sorts of fun stuff. And the guy that did it, he did a good job. But my gosh, all that dust from sanding was crazy. There's got to be a better way. And doing it where you don't have to sand much is probably the only way.
The best plan. Okay, let's go on. I just put this one in because I wanted to just talk about the fact that clearly you're taping it off. You spray painted it, right? Did you spray?
I didn't actually, and I'd removed part of the taping and masking. No, that was so I sprayed texture. I did an orange peel texture.
Oh, cool!
That's one of the ways you get away without sanding. You just do a good job, and then texture it. So. We decided not to spray it. It's such a small space. My wife and I stayed out there one night and we painted and drank a bottle of wine and just made a night of it. And so it was actually a really fun night. It just took a couple hours to get it painted. So
I wondered. Because it's small and then you breathe in all that. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Orange peel. I like that idea.
Peel. We'll have to look at that. I wanted to make sure we just had a picture of how you were finishing out your bathroom. I know it's kind of hard to get the thing, but is that a closet what is that I'm seeing in the
That's
back?
kind of my utility closet. I put we used an on-demand water heater,
Right.
and my electrical's on the outside of the building, just outside that closet. And so that's just sort of my mechanical room, I guess. So if I have to get into the electrical panel for some reason, I can do it in there without tearing any of my finished spaces up.
Right.
And then also I needed a place to hide the water heater. I didn't want it exposed on a wall somewhere. And so we're just going to actually put a curtain over that. We'll have storage in there. Since it's a B&B, we may have like a vacuum cleaner and some things to just clean the space, keep spare towels and stuff like that.
Right.
Cool. All right.
I like that. All right.
And easy with that shower inset.
That's actually, so I learned a lesson on that. That's actually an acrylic 4-piece unit, which is way more work. I've done a fiberglass insert, which is super easy. This was a learning experience for me, but because you have to frame it out specifically
to line up with all the places
and then glue it all in place. And I was like, man, this is like I thought I was going to do this in like a half an hour, and it took me half a day.
So will you excuse me, will you do it again?
I would. I'll know next time to frame it before I get ready to put the shower in, because I had to kind of drag out all the framing stuff and do a lot of work I wasn't planning on doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's pretty.
Thank you.
Okay. And there's just the vanity. And I'm assuming there'll be a mirror back up there.
Yes, there will. We're still working on getting all that finished.
I mean, the sunlight coming through is
the
nice.
shadow of the window in the tree. That's totally cool.
Okay. I'm making Barry run the mouse, as you can see. Okay, this is back to the Astrofoil. I wanted to talk about, you alluded to it, but just for people who are paying attention to this is your Astrofoil is not touching your beadboard on your ceiling. It is creating that gap in the ceiling. I also like the fact that you put, excuse me, frog in my throat, beadboard on the ceiling, because sheetrock is heavy.
Yes.
Even though it's cheap, it's heavy. And so if you're doing this yourself, you and your wife, putting that, I don't know, did you use any sort of lifts to do this?
Okay, so this is actually not beadboard paneling. This is tongue and groove pine.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So, but it's pre-painted or something, or did you?
I pre-painted it.
You pre-painted it. Okay.
Yeah, I pre-painted it. 160 or 80 pieces of it.
You counted every single one.
Yeah, I did.
Would you do that again?
Yes, because I like the finished product. But I think I'll get a bigger sprayer.
Yeah. Paint that sucker. I watched somebody in some group, they were painting them all on the floor. Like just painting the floor.
Oh my God. So I laid mine out on, what I did is I set drying racks. I had drying racks set up and I laid it out on sawhorses and sprayed it and then would take it to the drying racks. And it took my son did one day, I did 3 days. So it took 4 days of paint, move, dry.
I mean, that's dedication. Now, these look small, though. Our tongue and groove, well, you can see in our podcast studio, we have a 12-incher in the tongue and groove with a V, what do they call that? A V band or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we have the four inchers in our front part up here. These look small. How wide are these?
So it's a 4-inch.
Oh, okay.
But it's, there's a bead on the center.
Oh, I got you. So we're doing a double.
Yeah, it's like an inch and I think they call it a 2-inch bead. It's a little bit under 2 inches.
Yeah, so I know what that is. Yeah, it just looks like a separate piece of wood. Anyway, it's lovely.
Thank you.
It looks great.
It does. Okay. Don't paint it on the floor, though.
Yeah, don't paint it on the floor. No. That's like a hard way to do it.
Yeah,
total side here. I watched a video the other day of I love Japanese shoshugiban, where you take a torch and you burn wood.
Okay.
To bring out the texture in the wood, and somebody was doing a plywood floor with this. They were using one of those dragon torches, that you attach to your propane tank, and the guy was doing it in his house, on the subfloor against the wall, and his wife made him move it outside. And I'm thinking,
good for her.
Yeah, it's a great way to burn your house down.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We're almost done about the tour. This is just that getting into that bathroom
again.
And then I wanted to talk about finishing this off. So you've taken and the edges of those beadboard, because nobody can cut that perfectly. You've taken and put trim on that, and it looks really lovely the way you've done it.
That is, it's excellent finishes.
It's very nice.
Thank you.
There's your little kitchen.
Yeah, that's just last weekend, just getting it set.
Now, I didn't see a fridge. Is that underneath, or is that something going somewhere else?
The fridge is going to stand on the end of this
section. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes, and they were actually putting a cooktop in under the microwave, but we've been waiting on it to be delivered, and so I'm putting a 2-burner cooktop.
So what is this little here? I'll do it with what is this? Just decorative?
It is. My wife won't tell me what she's got to put up there, but we're going to put something up there, and it's going to have lights shining up on it.
How cute. That'll be nice. I mean, so I have a friend, and I'll tell you my tip in a minute, but I have a friend who does this, and every picture that she takes of her bed and breakfast, she says that has to be Instagrammable. Right?
Right.
So your wife already is thinking about an Instagrammable shot with that section up there. That's what I say.
It would actually kind of be a cool place for an aquarium.
Yeah.
Though I don't know how you
I wouldn't
feed
want
the fish.
that much water up there. And here's just a close up of that. You use the same. We've got the same
open shelving. I love
shelves. I mean, we've got the same brackets. Well, they look similar. Amazon.
Yes, they came off of Amazon.
Yeah,
that's what we did too.
We got heavy duty hand forged kind of thing.
They're not as sturdy as you think they're going to be because there's no real bracket, so they're a little bit givey.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to tie the corners together on that. Where the corners go in, we're going to tie those with little steel brackets. So I hope that makes it a little more rigid.
A little bit more steady. Yeah.
Like that.
All right. And is that you? That's your son?
That's my son. He was helping me build the floating deck steps.
So we're about to the big reveal. Okay.
To the
big reveal. Okay. So you got steps.
You got steps, and he knows to measure twice and cut once.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't ask you, how big is their space? How big is this building?
It's 12 by 32. So I think it's about 370 inside.
Yeah, that's exactly what we have, except we have a little porch. To do it over, I wouldn't do it over that again.
I'm expanding this spring.
Okay, go. And there it is.
I love that.
It's so cute.
Thank you.
Great. Now, are you planning on leaving the bottom open like that, or are you going to put anything in front of it?
No. So our local buy sell trade Facebook group, I came across someone selling used 4x4 treated post, and I went and bought 60 or 80 of those for like $100. I mean, it was just nothing. And so what I'm going to do is interlace those and make a weave. So I'm going to weave those in layers around.
Oh, cool.
You sound like a crazy person, but I think it'll be amazing.
Hopefully it won't be too hard.
It sounds amazing.
It sounds cool.
I want final pictures of that. All right. So here, let's talk about money, and let's talk about kind of how you're going to use this Airbnb, and just kind of give me the thumbnail of that if you could. Generally, I mean, we don't want to get into your pocketbook, but if you can help people understand that.
Right. So I think one of the things people generally look for is they want to be able to build one of these for less per square foot than it costs to build a house. And that's not going to happen.
No.
Right.
Because you are building a house.
Right.
And what we found is even, if you're going to make it nice, most of your, well, not most, but a lot of your money comes from kitchen, bathroom. Those are typically,
and you have to have one.
And so even though the space is small, the cost per foot for the total building is going to be about what it costs to build a house.
Right.
And we ended up about, we're probably about $90 a foot, finished space. So, around $35,000 for the project. It's, that's what we went in playing. The only thing we went over on was, I decided not to dig a 300-foot trench and lay the sewer myself.
Yes. I understand this thing.
It just, it wasn't in my, I could do it. I didn't want to do it. And so anyhow, we hired that. We had not planned for that. Going into it, it's like, oh yeah, I'll just do that myself. And then you start looking at it and you're like,
it took me 4.5 days to paint all this stuff. I'm not digging a 300-foot trench.
That's it. So it was about $3,000, more than what we planned. Lumber was a little bit more, but we were pretty close on our budget. But we've done, you know, a few construction projects through the years, quite a few actually. So we hit pretty close. We knew about what it was going to cost
So
before
you
we
think you
started.
ended up with at about 90, including your septic, or you were
So
at
we had existing septic. The 300 foot was to tie into our existing septic line.
Gotcha.
And so we have a septic on property, and we actually have sewer on our property too, but we choose not to tie into it, so we just use our own septic. And so anyway, we tied into that, so it's essentially just putting one more bathroom on that septic. So
Right.
that's what we did is we used a transfer pump, and so we actually have a tank behind the shed below ground. There's a tank with a pump. And so it actually fills and then empties, you know, I think it holds 30 gallons. So you kind of have a mini septic there, and then it just transfers over to the existing. And it's a cost-effective way to do it. Most people are not really aware that that's an option.
I did not know that was an option. We tied in our house into our septic so both houses are on the same septic, but we would love to put a bathroom up here in this place. Not to stay. I don't even know if the county would let us do it. They're kind of picky, but you know, that might be something we could look into. That's cool.
Yeah, the transfer station works well because it'll even pump uphill. So
that's cool.
That's cool. You learn something new every day.
Is it just a pump that
yeah,
gross discussion, but it moves the solids?
Yes.
Or is it a macerator pump that kind of chops it up and then sends it out?
They call it a grinder pump.
Okay.
Yeah, that's enough information for this video. Okay, and now Airbnb, you're in Central Texas. You're probably within an hour of a city? A big city?
A big city, yes. We're about an hour from Fort Worth.
From Fort Worth. So so when you decide to rent this, and I've looked on Airbnb before, and if I recall, you can go to, and I was just going to verify this, but you can go somewhere to Airbnb and say, hey, I've got a Airbnb I want to rent in this area. And they'll give you kind of a range of what you could price it at. Is that correct? Or do you know that?
Oh, so you mean as the,
if you're hosting on Airbnb itself,
you know, you can set the price really whatever you want. I don't know that they have suggested pricing. They may, because my wife did all of that.
I thought I saw that, but I may be wrong.
It's very possible, but you can price it however you want. And so we just kind of looked at the area and just, we've been using it for several years. So we have a pretty good idea. And I mean, there's people around here that charge $200 a night, you know, to rent a cabin. And so, you know, we're starting out at 120 and we hope to land at 150 after we get it up and rolling. You know, which is about what it costs to stay in a nice hotel.
Right.
Hotel around here. And so that's kind of what we're looking at.
And privacy. Yeah, exactly. Right. And so if you do the math, and I'm sure people now are getting out their calculators and they're figuring out, well, it was 300 square feet and it's $90 a square foot and at 35 or 40,000 in it. And how fast am I getting that money back? And the money comes back very quickly.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I heard some time ago that, you know, anything you can invest in that pays back in under 5 years, do it now.
Right.
And these do. You know, I think with just with really you know, if you can even get to 50%, you can get your money back in like 18 months.
Yeah.
Right.
At 50% rental capacity. You know, so that means at 25%, you know, you're 3 years. So if I can rent every weekend of the month or one full week and a couple weekends, you know, it's a 3-year payback.
Yeah. So here's my tip.
Okay.
I have a career in recruiting physicians and nurses. During this crisis in particular, the travel nursing industry has gone insane.
Okay.
And I can promise you that there's a travel nurse somewhere looking for your property right now. And they're booking for 13 weeks at a time.
Wow.
And after this call, I'll send you the link of where you can put this if you'd be interested. I don't get anything for it. But having a 13-week guest who would love to stay in your space, and they do them in 13-week blocks, you might be able to be full all the time.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, send it to me, and yeah, I'll research it. We're probably, we're gonna start booking here in about, hopefully, actually, we have our first guest for Valentine's weekend. So
That's cool.
their trial, some people, business acquaintance / friends. And so from then on, so in a month or a little over, we'll be ready. So yes,
Right.
Cool.
send it to
Right.
me.
And nurses are desperately looking for safe places. And I've seen some of the places that they're having to stay, and
Horrible.
I wouldn't stay there. But they get a travel stipend, so they have only a certain amount of money to spend, but they can afford what you have. And many of them would love that space.
Great.
So
Yes,
I know
absolutely.
you've got hospitals near you, so I'll get that to you and let you know.
Great. Yeah, we will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Yeah. What spot in Texas doesn't have hospitals near them?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there are lots of spots in Texas that don't.
Well,
have
that's
hospitals
true.
near
I mean,
them.
yes.
I've been to all of them, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, and do you have anything else that you wanted to say? Of course, we will put. Excuse me, I've got a frog. The link to your bed and breakfast in the comments, so people can book if they want to. We would love to promote you that way. Did I miss any questions or anything that you think people need to know about this experience?
I would just say, if you're interested in it, make sure you do your homework first. I think that the more resources you have, the better. But then
Like
I
a
would just say,
brother-in-law.
that's right. Yeah. Friend, brother-in-law, and there's groups online.
And
I
I
think
would always
that-
ask my next contractor, what do I do about this? How do I do this? Can you recommend the next guy to me? I mean, they really helped me. My contractors helped me.
Yes. Yes. I think that I have, so in the forums, I've seen some questions, and I don't mean it to be, horsey, but sometimes I'll respond, if you have to ask about this, you should probably hire someone.
Yes,
Right.
I feel that way. I haven't said that yet, but I feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, because some of this stuff, I think, if you have to ask, if you have to ask about electrical almost at all, I mean, I'm not saying there are some specifics, but if you have to ask how to wire a receptacle, you should probably not be wiring a house.
No, I agree. It's not
And
safe.
yeah, if you've never used PVC glue, you probably should not be plumbing a house. And so there's some of those things where I think you can learn for sure with resources, but you can't do it by yourself, is what I should say. You're going to need some help. So make sure you have that in place before you move in, because I see some of these folks moving in with an extension cord and a bed and a little heater, and they're trying to figure out how to finish the house. And
Right.
Or they're working, they've gotten rid of all their worldly goods. They've stuck it in the house and they're trying to work around with it, and it gets overwhelming. So
yeah.
in that scenario, if you are out of your house, you have to move to make it all work. I recommend highly that they just build themselves a little 10 by 12 bedroom to live in and then work in the house. Don't try to do all that. It's just too much. And so many people get discouraged, and you want them to finish their projects. So, I mean, this is a big job. Nobody realizes by looking at that house, nobody realizes, and you already had the shell done, how much work it is, how hard it is to accomplish. 4 days of painting, just the ceiling boards, right? And you guys know what you're doing. So I just think it's a big project. That's why I always recommend for everybody to go as small as they can to start with, and then plan to expand. Right? If you have whatever the minimum is you can live in, do that, and then expand if you need to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this
So
has
just
been
do your
great.
research.
Do your research, and don't do anything stupid, and don't follow bad advice. That's the other thing. The internet,
there are books.
There are groups all over any social media platform that are full of advice that should not be taken.
Right.
That's right. And those shed groups are the same way, unfortunately.
Yes,
So
they
you have to
are.
be
Some
careful
guy
there.
was recommending they insulate. This is the one that bothers me, that one of the most, and I've said this before, insulate their house with cardboard. I'm like, that is bad advice. Do not insulate your house with cardboard. You're talking about roaches and water and mold and resins and all kinds of things. Don't do that.
Right.
I mean, Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you being our first StreamYard guest. So we figured out the details. We were having internet troubles earlier. So this has been a bonus podcast for this week.
Right.
We usually do it on Tuesdays, and then we had to reschedule this. So we're just having a 2-week podcast week. So that's been fun.
Well, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
We've enjoyed it as well. I'm looking forward to coming and staying there.
Yeah, we'll be on your list. Actually, I'm starting a YouTube channel. I have started it, but of these like shed homes. There's so many tiny home channels, right? But these shed homes are almost non-existent channels. So we'll come stay if you'll let us.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, of course. Put it on our YouTube. That'd be
fun. We'd love to have you.
But
I can't completely fill it up with nurses. Then that means, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We'll come in between.
Yeah, but not in the middle of summer. I've been to Dallas, Fort Worth in the middle of summer, and I don't think I'm doing that
they're
again.
The same temperatures as we are. We're in Atlanta, and just north of Atlanta, so we know.
No,
right.
Well,
yes, that's true.
I spent Hades few days in Grapevine once. That was hot as man. That was hot that year.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been fun. You've been a great
welcome.
guest and great. I mean, such a great job.
Yeah.
On that cabin. That's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yep, it looks great.
Thank you.
Are packed all the time.
Me too. Me too.
Well, yes.
See you.
All right.
All right.
Good to see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.